Hey RV family, keep it tight. My name is Jay Morris, the review guy, reviewing music for the love of music, and I'm back again to bring you another video. In this one I'm going to be covering the PVRIS EP entitled Hallucinations. This is the band's follow-up EP to their critically acclaimed, amazing 2017 album, All We Know of Heaven, All We Need of Hell, and this little EP in particular marks a fairly strong departure from the sound that was present on that album to some degree, and even All We Know of Heaven, All We Need of Hell swapped a little bit stylistically from their first album, White Noise, which featured this synth-laden, alternative rock-tinged, post-hardcore sound. On White Noise, as well as their subsequent album, they always had an affinity with playing around with synth-pop influences and electropop influences. However, on this Hallucinations EP, they are diving headfirst into a sound that is centered around that as opposed to simply embracing it, but it also bears a lot of resemblance to some of the modern mainstream pop production that you're getting in, say, the top 40. If you enjoy or even prefer the electronics that they lace into their music, chances are you're gonna enjoy this album or at least admire it a little bit, but in my personal opinion, I think they've even desaturated that to some degree on this EP. Lynn Gunn is still a wonderful vocalist. She is one of the main reasons that I have enjoyed PVRIS for so many years. But with that in mind, I don't even think that she flexes some of her vocal muscles on this album that we know she is capable of. Take their last album, some of the sweeter sections and some of the sweeter tracks, more mellow tracks, more melodic tracks, are some of my favorites. But even with said sections in mind, some of the more heartbreaking sections, she still possessed this level of natural rasp and grit to her voice. And I was so very disappointed by the first track on this album, the self-titled track Hallucinations, when I realized that we're just not getting that same resonance. This track just consists of some very understated verses in my opinion, a bridge that gets unnecessarily spacey, and a chorus that reeks of some of the most gentrified top 40 choruses. And most of my disappointment with this record stems solely from the fact that I know, because I've heard, that PVRIS can do this style better. It's not so much of a departure that it's impossible to understand why they would have head in this more direct direction. Meaning this isn't such a massive offshoot, just a little bit of a detour into something that they've already done better. Maybe it's because it's an EP, I don't know. But enough time has passed that if this is the material we're getting 2 years after the release of All We Know of Heaven, All We Need of Hell, almost 3 years after the release of that album, I really don't know what to say. However, not all of the tracks are this underwritten, this understated. They're not as bad as the first track. In comparison, Death of Me, although it is one of the more generic song topics that we have heard before, not necessarily by PVRIS but by others, it's much more groovy, it's more naturally rhythmatic, with a more lavish bridge and a chorus that actually matches the high-octane performance of Lynn with some very grim, dark bass work, some layered vocals, and a really choking atmosphere to it all. And luckily, things are better. Is better. Generally, even though this track is more minimalistic, at this point, Lynn just shouting her lungs out just sounds so great, and those subtle pianos are played in a way that adds even more emotional depth to the entire thing. Look, it's a passable EP, but it's just passable, and that isn't a good quality to have, especially when you're a band that's not just trying to uphold the status quo, but people understand that you can do better. I might just think of this as a fluke, and even though there are a couple tracks that I would return to from this record, I think mostly it is a little bit of a disappointment for me. And not because it's terrible, but because I know this band can do better. And beyond that, I guess in the future I'd just like to see them maybe do this style a little bit better if they're gonna go in such a straightforward, blunt direction. But hey, at least it's not lifeless. That guy has that going for it. So my editing software just decided, hey, we're not going to accept your video. So the latter half is just completely obliterated because it's evidently corrupted, and I don't know how half a file can be corrupted, but you know what? I'll roll with it. Anyways, I'm gonna be giving this EP a 6.5 out of 10, and that is a wrap. Have you heard this new PVRIS EP, Hallucinations? If you have, let me know in the comment section below what you thought about it. I would love to discuss the record with you. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Jay Morris, the review guy, and I'm signing off saying farewell.